80 samurais, 80 men of flesh and blood, facing a horizon that darkens with 20,000 Mongol warriors. Komoda Beach on the island of Tsushima is about to become a slaughterhouse. It is November 18th, 1274 AD, and the samurai world, as it exists, has exactly 3 hours of life. But let's go back 7 years, because this massacre doesn't begin with blood, it begins with a letter. 1267, a messenger arrives on the shores of Japan. He brings a document sealed with the imperial seal of Kublai Khan, the most powerful man on the planet, the grandson of Genghis Khan, the emperor who has conquered all of China, who has subdued Korea, who has expanded the largest empire the world has ever seen. And now he sets his eyes on 4 islands to the east. 4 islands that the Mongols call the land of the rising sun. Japan. The letter is simple, brutally simple. Since ancient times, the rulers of small countries have sought to maintain friendly relations with those of great nations. We, having conquered all of China and Korea, now extend our hand to your shores. Send ambassadors, pay tribute, or face the consequences. It's not an invitation, it's a death sentence, confirms the Kamakura shogunate at the end. The military government that controls Japan reads the letter, rereads it, and does something that no other kingdom conquered by the Mongols has ever done. Something that defies all military and diplomatic logic. They ignore it completely. Absolute silence. No ambassadors, no tribute, not even a polite response saying thanks, but no. Kublai Khan is not accustomed to silence. He sends another letter, and another, and another. For 6 years, Mongol messengers cross the Sea of Japan, carrying the same increasingly threatening message. 6 years of ignored warnings. 6 years of wasted opportunities. 6 years in which Japan basically tells the most powerful empire in the world, we're not interested in your friendship, we're not interested in your trade, and we're definitely not interested in being your vassal. Absolute bravery or suicidal arrogance. Because here's the problem. Japan has never been invaded. Never. In all its history, no foreign army has set foot on its shores. The samurais are formidable warriors. Yes, but their combat experience is limited to internal civil wars. They fight between Japanese clans. They know the rules of Bushido, the warrior code. One-on-one combats. Honor on the battlefield. Announce your name and lineage before attacking. The Mongols have no idea what Bushido is, and they don't care. While Japan remains in its proud silence, Kublai Khan is preparing something that the Japanese cannot even imagine. In the ports of Korea, specifically in Masan and in Japo Bay, an invasion fleet is being built. 900 ships, 900 war vessels that will transport 15,000 Mongol and Chinese warriors, plus 8,000 Korean soldiers forced to join 23,000 men, weapons that Japan has never seen, tactics they don't understand, and a military discipline that has conquered from Eastern Europe to the Pacific. The Mongols don't fight with honor, they fight to win. They use poison on their arrows, attack in groups, don't announce their name, and have something that will terrify the samurais more than any sword. Gunpowder bombs, iron spheres filled with explosives that they launch with catapults. When they explode, metal fragments fly in all directions, tearing flesh and bone. The sound is deafening, the psychological effect devastating. Japan knows nothing of this. While the Mongols build their armada, the samurais train with their katanas perfect. Their archery meditate on honor and dignified death. They have no idea that honor is about to become irrelevant. October 1274, the fleet sets sail from Korea, 900 ships sailing east. Destination, the island of Tsushima. Why Tsushima first? Because it's the gateway to Japan, a small island between Korea and the main island of Kyushu. If you conquer Tsushima, you have a base of foothold, a place from which to launch the final assault on Japan. On Tsushima live approximately 80 permanent samurais under the command of the Hito, the military governor named Sosukekuni. 80 warriors to defend an entire island. They have wives, children, peasants under their protection. They have temples, rice fields, a way of life that has existed for generations. And now, on November 18, they see the horizon darken. It's not a storm, it sails. Hundreds and hundreds of sails. The Mongol fleet appears like a materialized nightmare. The lookouts on the coast run to inform Sukakuni. The governor climbs a cliff and watches. He counts the ships. 10, 20, 50, 100. He can't count them all. There are too many. Sukakuni knows basic math. 80 against thousands. The options are clear. Surrender, flee to Kyushu and warn the shogunate, or do the unthinkable. Stay, fight, die. Here's the moral dilemma that defines everything that follows. What is worth more, life or honor? Because Sukakuni and his men know they are going to die. There's no doubt about it. But if they flee, Tsushima falls without resistance. The Mongols have a secure base. And most importantly, if there's no resistance, if no one fights, the shogunate in Kyushu won't know how big the threat is. They won't know they need to mobilize the whole country. They won't know that this isn't a group of pirates. It's a full-scale invasion. Sukakuni makes the decision. They stay, fight, and in the process, send a message that will take days to reach Kyushu, but it will be clear. Japan is under attack, and the enemy is unstoppable. The Mongol fleet lands on Komoda Beach. The first boats touch the sand. The warriors jump into the water, and this is where the nightmare materializes for the samurais. These are not individual warriors seeking honorable duels. They are a military machine. They advance in formation, shields in front, archers behind. His achievements and challenges a worthy opponent. Takesaki Suenaga, one of the warriors from Tsushima, rides at the front. He shouts his name at the top of his lungs. He expects a Mongol warrior to respond. He expects a duel. Instead, he receives a rain of arrows. The Mongols don't hesitate. They don't respond, they simply shoot. Hundreds of arrows darken the sky. Suenaga feels 3 impacts, almost simultaneously. One in the shoulder, another in the thigh. The third kills his horse. He falls, rolls on the sand. He's going to die here on this beach, without even having crossed swords with anyone. But Suenaga doesn't die. Not yet. One of his companions, a samurai named Shiraishi Michiyasu, sees the scene, rides straight into the Mongol line, shouting, challenging, trying to create a distraction. The Mongols turn, shoot, Michiyasu falls, but in those crucial seconds, Suenaga manages to crawl off the battlefield. He will survive. He will be one of the few direct witnesses of what is about to happen. The 80 samurais are being massacred. It's not a battle, it's an organized execution. The Mongols don't fight as individuals, they fight as a unit. When a samurai charges, 10 Mongols surround him, attack him from all angles. No jewels, no honor, just brutal efficiency. And then, the samurais hear something they've never heard before. A high-pitched whistle in the air, followed by an explosion that shakes the earth. The gunpowder bombs. Iron spheres the size of a human head fly through the air, launched from the Mongol ships. When they impact, they explode with a deafening noise. Fire erupts. Metal fragments fly in all directions like 1,000 invisible knives. Horses panic, men scream. Some samurais have never heard an explosion in their lives. They think it's magic, they think it's the thunder of the gods. It's worse than that. It's technology. It's the difference between a civilization that has been in constant war against half the world and an island that has fought only against itself. Sukakuni watches as his men fall one by one. He sees the Mongol formation advance like an unstoppable tide. He takes his katana. There is a samurai tradition. When defeat is inevitable, when there is no escape, a warrior can choose to die fighting or die by his own hand. Seppuku, ritual suicide. Die with dignity instead of being executed like a dog. Sukakuni chooses neither. He charges straight into the center of the Mongol formation. His remaining men follow him. 23 samurais in the last desperate charge. They shout, wield their katanas, throw themselves against a wall of shields and spears. None survive. The Battle of Komoda lasts less than 3 hours. 80 samurais dead. The Mongols have casualties. Yes, but they are minimal. Maybe 100 men, maybe less. It's such a complete massacre that the Mongols don't even consider it a real battle. For them, it was a warm-up. Now they control the beach. They disembark the rest of the force. 20,000 warriors step on Japanese soil for the first time in history, and the true invasion of Tsushima begins. The Mongols don't waste time. They divide their forces. One group advances into the interior of the island, looking for villages, temples, any sign of resistance. Another group secures the coast, and a third begins to build fortifications. Because here's the genius of the Mongol strategy. They don't just invade, they conquer and stay. The villagers of Tsushima hear the Mongol war drums echoing in the hills. They see the smoke from the enemy campfires. They know the 80 samurais won't return. Some families flee into the interior of the island, hiding in forests and caves. Others try to escape in small boats to Kyushu. Many don't make it. The Mongols patrol the nearby waters, capture those trying to flee. And this is where Mongol brutality shows in all its magnitude. Because the Mongols don't just kill soldiers. They have a psychological terror tactic that they've perfected in 40 years of conquests, making the next target surrender before you arrive. How? By ensuring that survivors tell stories so terrifying that no one wants to fight. The Mongols take prisoners hundreds of civilians, women, children, elderly priests, tie them up, and then do something that will be etched in Japanese collective memory for centuries. They pierce the palms of their hands, pass ropes through the holes, and hang the prisoners from the sides of their ships like human banners. Imagine that. Imagine being a defender on the next island, looking at the horizon and seeing the Mongol fleet approaching with bodies hanging from the ships. People who are still alive. People who are screaming. That's the message. This awaits you if you resist. Music. Some prisoners are beheaded. Their heads are piled on the beach as a warning. The Mongols have a macabre accounting. Tsushima falls completely in 2 days. 2 days to conquer an entire island. The few samurais left in remote villages try to organize resistance. They fight, they die. There's no epic in these deaths, no poems, just blood in the mud and unburied bodies. But something crucial has happened, something the Mongols didn't plan. Before dying, Sukekuni managed to send a message. A rider escaped in the first hours of the attack. He crossed the strait to Kyushu in a small boat. He arrived at the city of Dazaifu, the administrative capital of Kyushu, with news that seems impossible. An immense fleet, thousands of warriors' weapons that explode like thunder. Tsushima has fallen. The governor of Dazaifu, Shoni Tsunesuke, hears the report. His first reaction is disbelief and invasion. Really? 6 years have passed since the last letter from Kublai Khan. 6 years of silence. Many in the shogunate thought the Mongol emperor had forgotten Japan, that he was too busy consolidating China, that the threats were just empty words. Tsunesuke now knows the truth. The threats were a promise. He mobilizes everything he has. He sends urgent messengers to Kamakura, the capital of the shogunate. He orders all available samurais in Kyushu to concentrate on the coast. He begins evacuating villages near the sea. He prepares defenses. But here's the problem. Japan doesn't have a unified army. There's no mass conscription. The samurais are elite warriors, but they are few. Maybe 3,000 in the entire Kyushu region against 20,000 Mongols. And the Mongols are already on the move. After securing Tsushima, the fleet sets sail again. The next target, the island of Iki, is only 50 kilometers from Tsushima, even closer to Kyushu. If Iki falls, the Mongols will be at the gates of mainland Japan. Iki is larger than Tsushima, has more population, and has more defenders. Approximately 120 samurais under the command of the Hito Taira Kagetaka. Kagetaka knows what happened in Tsushima. The messenger arrived. They told him everything. The Mongol formations, the bombs, the total massacre. Kagetaka has a decision to make, the same decision Sukekuni faced. Stay and die, or flee and live. But Kagetaka has something Sukekuni didn't have. Time, days of preparation. He can organize a real defense. He can choose the terrain. He can make every Mongol pay a price for every meter of land, or he can evacuate, take his men as families, all the civilians he can, and escape to Kyushu before the fleet arrives. Save lives instead of sacrificing them for honor. Kagetaka chooses honor. He stays, he prepares barricades on the beaches, he organizes archers in the hills. He evacuates women and children to the interior of the island, to temples and improvised fortresses. And waits, November 20th. The Mongol fleet appears on the horizon of Iki. Kagetaka sees the same 900 ships. He sees the bodies hanging from the sides. He recognizes some faces. People from Tsushima he met at festivals and ceremonies. Now they are corpses, swaying with the waves. The landing begins. The Mongols have perfected the tactic. First bombardment with the explosive spheres. The catapults on the ships launch dozens of bombs toward the coast. They explode among the defenders. Horses flee in terror. Then waves of archers. Thousands of arrows darken the sky. The samurais take refuge behind the improvised barricades, and finally the infantry. The Mongols charge, but this time they find organized resistance. Kagetaka divided his men into small groups. They don't charge like madmen toward death. They position themselves at strategic points, hills, narrow passes, places where Mongol numbers count less. It works for a few hours. It works. The Mongols take the beach, yes, but when they advance inland, the samurais counterattack from the flanks in quick ambushes. They hit and retreat. They hit and retreat. They kill dozens of Mongols, maybe hundreds, but the Mongols are 20,000 and they have all day. The Mongol formations adapt. Send scouts, detect the ambushes before they happen, surround the defensive positions, and little by little, methodically crush every point of resistance. The 120 samurais become 100. Then, 80-60, 40 Kagetaka is wounded. An arrow in the side, another in the leg. He bleeds, but keeps giving orders. He regroups the survivors in a small fortress in the center of the island. It's a wooden structure. It won't withstand a siege, but maybe it can last until night, and in the darkness maybe some can escape. The Mongols surround the fortress. They don't attack immediately. They have no hurry, they wait, let the fear grow. They let the defenders hear the screams of the captured civilians. They let them imagine what's coming. Then they launch the bombs one after another. The fortress burns. The wooden walls explode. Kagetaka comes out with his last 20 men. He charges one last time. He doesn't shout his name. He doesn't seek an honorable duel. He just fights. He kills 3 Mongols before a spear pierces him. He falls, tries to get up, can't. A Mongol soldier approaches, raises his sword. Kagetaka closes his eyes. Iki falls in one day. 120 samurais dead. Thousands of civilians captured. The same atrocities, hands pierced, heads, piled bodies hung on the ships. 2 islands, 200 warriors annihilated in less than a week. And now the Mongol fleet heads to Kyushu, to the heart of Japan. November 23rd, the 900 ships arrive at Hakata Bay on the north coast of Kyushu. It's the largest landing in Japanese history. 20,000 Mongol warriors against 3,000 samurais scattered in the region. The math is brutal, but something has changed. The samurais of Kyushu have had days to prepare. They've heard the reports. They know traditional tactics don't work. They know individual honor will kill them. For the first time in their history, Japanese samurais have to adapt or go extinct. And most importantly, behind them is the whole nation. If Kyushu falls, Japan falls. There are no more islands to retreat to. It's here or never. The Mongols land at Hakata. The beach is wide, perfect for a massive landing. The bombs explode, arrows fly, formations advance. They expect another easy massacre. Instead, they find something unexpected. The samurais don't charge, don't shout their names. They hold position, wait. And when the Mongols get close enough, they counterattack in coordinated waves. They don't fight alone. They fight in groups. It's clumsy. It's improvised. But it works better than heroic suicide. The Mongols advance, yes, but they pay a price. For every kilometer they conquer, they lose dozens of men. The beach becomes a mutual slaughterhouse. Night falls. The Mongols control the coast, but haven't penetrated deep. They regroup. They light campfires, plan the final assault for tomorrow. The samurais retreat to the nearby hills. They are exhausted, wounded, but alive. And then the sky changes, the clouds turn black. The wind begins to blow from the sea with a force that bends trees. The Mongols on the beach look toward the horizon. Something is coming, something huge. It's a storm, but not just any storm. It's a typhoon, a Pacific hurricane that has been forming for days in open waters. And now, on the night of November 23rd, it hits Hakata Bay with absolute fury. The waves grow 3 and 5 mil 10 mil. The 900 Mongol ships anchored in the bay begin to crash into each other. Sailors try to cut anchors, move away from the coast sail to deep waters. But it's too late. The wind pushes them. The waves drag them, ships crash against rocks split in half. Mongol warriors sleeping on deck are thrown into the water. Those below deck are trapped when the ships sink. The ocean swallows hundreds of vessels in a matter of hours. On land, the landed Mongols are trapped. The wind is so strong, they can't stand. Tents fly, campfires go out, rain falls, music, like spears. And in total darkness, unable to see 3 men away, they hear something worse, music, than the storm. The samurais attack, taking advantage of the chaos. They know the terrain. Move in the dark, like ghosts fall on the Mongol camps. Kill, disappear, attack again at another point. The Mongols can't form defensive lines, can't use their formation tactics. They are blind, wet, terrified. Dawn breaks on November 24th. The storm continues, though, with less intensity. The samurais return to the hills and look toward the bay. What they see is an apocalyptic vision. The coast is covered in wreckage, shattered wood, floating corpses, capsized ships. Of the 900 vessels, maybe 300 are still afloat, maybe less. The Mongols on land are demoralized. Without ships, they are trapped in enemy territory. Without supplies, they will starve. Without reinforcements, they will be massacred. The Mongol commander, a general named Kim Bang-kyung, makes a desperate decision: immediate retreat. He orders all survivors to return to the remaining ships. They abandon equipment, abandon wounded, abandon all pretense of conquering Kyushu. The battered fleet sets sail back to Korea. Of the 20,000 warriors who arrived, approximately 13,000 return, 7,000 dead. Not from glorious battles, from a storm. The Japanese watch the ships sail away. They can't believe it. They won. Not by tactical superiority, not by numbers, by the weather, by pure, inexplicable luck. Or maybe it wasn't luck, maybe it was something more. In the temples of Kyushu, Buddhist monks and Shinto priests have been praying non-stop since they learned of the invasion, asking for divine protection, asking for a miracle. And just when everything seemed lost, when the Mongols were about to overrun Japan, the storm came. The Japanese give a name to that wind. They call it kamikaze, divine wind. The wind sent by the gods to protect Japan from foreign invasion is the birth of a national myth that will last 700 years. But here's the question no one wants to ask. What happens when the gods don't send a second miracle because Kublai Khan isn't done? The 1274 invasion was just the first attempt, a test of reconnaissance in force. Now he knows Japan is vulnerable, knows the samurais can be defeated. He knows that with more men, more ships, better planning, he can conquer the islands, and he has 7 years to prepare. In Japan, the Kamakura shogunate is in panic. They won, yes, but barely. Tsushima destroyed Iki, raised thousands of civilians dead or captured. If the Mongols return with a larger force, Japan won't survive. The regent of the shogunate, Hojo Tokimune, orders total mobilization, construction of defensive walls along the entire coast of Kyushu, recruitment of more samurais, training in new tactics. For the first time, Japan prepares for total war against an external enemy. The walls begin to rise in Hakata, 2M high stone structures surrounding the entire bay. The idea is simple. If the Mongols can't land easily, their numbers don't matter. They have to cross the walls under arrow fire. Thousands of workers, peasants forced to build, raise the fortifications for years. Meanwhile in China, Kublai Khan is furious. The defeat wasn't military, it was climatic, but it's still a defeat. His reputation is at stake. Mongols don't lose invasions, they don't retreat. If he allows Japan to remain unconquered, other vassals might think they can rebel. He orders the construction of an even larger fleet. Not 900 ships, 4,500 ships, 20,000 warriors, 140,000 warriors. The largest invasion the world has seen in centuries. An armada so immense that no storm could stop it. But building a fleet of 4,500 ships isn't done in months. It's done in years. Kublai Khan needs wood, needs sailors, needs shipyards running day and night in Korea and China. And while he builds Japan, prepares, the 7 years between the first and second invasion are of constant paranoia. Every spring, every summer, lookouts on the coasts of Kyushu scan the horizon, waiting to see Mongol sails. Every time a storm appears, peasants think it's the kamikaze returning. Every time a foreign ship arrives, samurais run to the beaches with weapons drawn. Japan becomes a fortress. The walls of Hakata extend kilometer after kilometer. Watchtowers are built on every promontory. Arrows are stored by the millions. Samurais are trained, not only in individual combat, but in group formations. They learn to fight like the Mongols, as a unit, not as lone heroes. Hojo Tokimun, the regent of the shogunate, barely sleeps. He was 23 when he faced the first invasion. Now he's 30. He has dedicated his entire life to preparing Japan for the Mongols' return. He visits temples, meditates, consults with monks about the meaning of the kamikaze. Was it a unique miracle? Or will the gods protect Japan always? No one has answers. Only faith. 1281. Spring. Japanese spies in Korea send alarming reports. The fleet is almost complete. The Mongols are embarking troops. The invasion is imminent. Tokimun orders total mobilization. All samurais in Japan must head to Kyushu. It's not a request, it's an order under penalty of death. Clans that have been in civil war for decades must leave their conflicts and unite. For the first time in generations, samurais from all over the country fight under a single banner. Approximately 40,000 warriors concentrate in Kyushu. It's the largest army Japan has ever assembled. But against 140,000 Mongols, it's still insufficient. Summer 1281, the fleet sets sail. But it's not a single fleet, it's two. The first, composed of 900 ships with 40,000 Mongol and Korean warriors, sets out from Korea. The second, with 3,600 ships and 100,000 Chinese soldiers, sets sail from southern China. The plan is for both fleets to meet off the coasts of Kyushu and attack simultaneously. It's the most ambitious logistical coordination of the medieval era, and from the beginning, everything goes wrong. The Korean fleet arrives first. In early June, it doesn't wait for the Chinese fleet. The commander-in-general named Hong Dagu decides to attack immediately. His reasoning is simple. If they wait, the Japanese will have more time to prepare. Better to strike fast. They attack the islands of Tsushima and Iki again, but this time they find prepared resistance. The Japanese evacuated all civilians, left only garrisons of samurais trained specifically for guerrilla combat. The Mongols land the samurais' attack from the forests, constant ambushes. The Mongols take the islands, yes, but lose hundreds of men in the process. They continue to Kyushu, arrive at Hakata, and see the walls, 2 m of solid stone surrounding the entire bay. Behind the walls, thousands of samurai archers waiting. No way to land without suffering massive casualties. Hong Dagu orders a frontal assault anyway. The Mongols try to cross-jump from boats, run toward the walls under a rain of arrows. Some arrive, try to climb the samurais, push them with spears, throw them back. Bodies pile up at the foot of the walls. The Mongols return to the ships. Hong Dagu realizes he can't take Hakata by direct assault. He needs the Chinese fleet. He needs the additional 100,000 men to surround the defense's attack from multiple points. But the Chinese fleet doesn't arrive. It's delayed. Storms in the East China Sea. Logistical problems. Coordination between two fleets separated by thousands of kilometers is almost impossible with 13th century technology. Hong Dagu waits. His 40,000 men are trapped on the ships anchored off a hostile coast. Days pass weeks. The summer heat is brutal. Drinking water begins to run short. Provisions run out. Men get sick. Dysentery fevers. Being crammed in wooden ships under the Japanese sun is a recipe for plague. And the samurais don't stay still. They organize night attacks. Small boats with 10 or 20 warriors approach the Mongol fleet stealthily in the dark. They board the ships, kill the crew, set fire to the sails. Escape before reinforcements arrive. The Mongols call them the pirates of the night. They don't fight with honor, they attack at night, kill silently, disappear. It's terrifying. Mongol sailors can't sleep. Every creak in the dark could be a samurai climbing aboard. Finally, in mid-July, the Chinese fleet arrives. 3,600 ships with 100,000 fresh soldiers. Hong Dagu is relieved. Now they can launch the massive assaults around land at multiple points, overwhelm the defenders with sheer numbers. But his men are exhausted. They've been at sea for weeks. Many are sick. Morale is at rock bottom, and the newly arrived Chinese don't know the terrain, don't know how the Japanese fight. Hong Dagu decides to wait a few more days, regroup, plan the coordinated attack music. It's a reasonable tactical decision. It's also the decision that dooms the invasion, because on August 14th, the sky darkens again. Clouds come from the south, black, dense, swirling in spirals that sailors recognize immediately. Another typhoon, bigger than the one 7 years ago, much bigger. The Mongol commanders panic order to weigh anchors, set sail to deep waters where the waves are less dangerous than being near the rocky coast. But 4,500 ships don't move fast. Some are anchored too close to each other. Others have stuck anchors, others simply don't have enough healthy sailors to operate them. The wind begins to blow. Soft at first, then stronger then, with a force that rips masts from decks. The waves grow to impossible heights, 15 meters 20 moen, mountains of water that lift the ships like toys and crash them against rocks. Hong Dagu is on his flagship trying to coordinate the retreat. He sees a giant wave approaching. He shouts orders. No one can hear him over the roar of the wind. The wave hits the ship, capsizes. Hong Dagu falls into the water, tries to swim. The current drags him, he disappears under the waves. They never find his body. On land, the samurais watch from the walls. They can't believe what they see. The largest fleet in history is being destroyed before their eyes, ships splitting in half. Men jumping into the water, only to drown seconds later. The ocean is full of debris bodies, shredded flags. The storm lasts 2 days. 2 days of relentless wind horizontal rain waves that redesign the coast. When it finally dawns on August 16th, Hakata Bay looks like a cemetery. Thousands of corpses float in the water. Ship wreckage covers kilometers of beach, and of the 4,500 vessels that made up the invasion fleet, less than 300 remain navigable. The Mongol survivors are trapped without ships to return home, without food, without drinking water. Some try to surrender, swim to shore with hands up. The samurais execute them. No prisoners. Not after what happened in Tsushima. Not after the bodies hung on the ships. Not after the pierced hands. Other survivors try to build improvised rafts with ship wreckage. Most sink before leaving the bay. The few who manage to get away from the coast die of thirst or are captured by Japanese fishermen who hand them over to the samurais. For weeks, Japanese warriors scour the beaches looking for Mongols hidden in caves, in forests, in abandoned villages. They hunt music, them like animals. Some survivors commit suicide before being captured. Others try to fight to the end. None return home. Of the 140,000 warriors who left China and Korea, approximately 20,000 return. 120,000 dead. Most drowned. Some executed. Others simply disappeared in the chaos. It's the most catastrophic naval defeat in history up to that point. Bigger than Salamis, bigger than Actium. An entire fleet wiped from existence in 2 days. Kublai Khan receives the news in his palace in Dadu, modern Beijing. It's said he remained silent for hours. Then he ordered the execution of several surviving commanders. China is bankrupt after building 2 giant fleets that ended up at the bottom of the ocean. Korea is devastated, and most importantly, the Mongols who conquered half the world fear the Japanese sea. Surviving sailors tell stories. They say the Japanese gods protect those waters, that any fleet attempting to invade will be destroyed, that Japan is untouchable superstition spreads. No Mongol commander wants to lead a third invasion. No one wants to face the kamikaze again. Kublai Khan dies in 1294. His dream of conquering Japan dies with him. No later emperor tries. For the next 650 years until World War II, no foreign power attempts to invade Japan. And in Japan, the kamikaze becomes a national myth. Temples celebrate it, priests preach it, samurais invoke it, the gods protect Japan. It's a belief that will last centuries, that will shape national identity, that will make the Japanese believe their country is literally indestructible. In Tsushima, where it all began, survivors bury their dead. 80 samurais who stayed when they could have fled. 80 men who knew they were going to die, but fought anyway. They didn't stop the invasion, but they delayed it. They sent the warning. They gave Kyushu time to prepare. Were they heroes or madmen, brave or suicidal? Depends on how you look at it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If they had fled, if they had chosen life over honor, maybe the invasion would have succeeded. Maybe the Mongols would have established a base in Tsushima without resistance. Maybe they would have reached Kyushu before the walls were built. Or maybe none of that matters. Maybe the kamikaze would have come anyway. Maybe the gods really protected Japan. Maybe everything was predestined. But the 80 samurais didn't know that. They didn't know a storm was coming. They didn't know they would win. They only knew they had a choice. Run or stay alive or die with dignity. They chose dignity, and that choice multiplied by hundreds of warriors in Tsushima, Iki, and Kyushu is what saved Japan as much as any divine wind. But there's a story within this story that isn't often told. The story of those who weren't heroes, who didn't choose to die gloriously, who survived and had to live with that decision. Takesaki Suenaga, remember him, the samurai who charged first on Komoda Beach, the one who shouted his name expecting an honorable duel and received 3 arrows instead. The one who was rescued while his comrades died, survived, and that survival haunted him the rest of his life. Suenaga returned home after the first invasion, wounded, traumatized, but alive. His neighbors looked at him with a mix of respect and something else, something uncomfortable. Because in a culture where dying in battle is glorious, surviving when your comrades die is complicated. Suenaga knew what they thought. He fled. He saved himself while the true warriors fell. It didn't matter that he was unconscious. It didn't matter that he was dragged from the battlefield. The narrative was stronger than the facts. So he did something extraordinary, something no other samurai had done. He hired an artist, a painter, and asked him to create an illustrated scroll and a makimono. The scroll is called Moko Shurai Ikotoba, the illustrated narrative of the Mongol invasions, and it's unique in Japanese history because it shows the samurais losing, shows the bombs exploding, shows warriors fleeing in terror. It shows Suenaga falling from his horse with arrows in his body. Why did he do it? Because he needed people to know the truth. He needed them to understand that the Mongols weren't an ordinary enemy, that the victory wasn't due to samurai superiority, it was due to luck the weather, a miracle that might not repeat. But there was another reason. Suenaga was seeking rewards. In the Japanese feudal system, samurais who fight in battles expect to be compensated with lands, titles, money. But how do you prove you fought if all witnesses are dead? How do you prove your valor if you survived when you were supposed to die? The scroll was his evidence. It showed he was there, that he charged first, that he was wounded in combat, that his actions, though they didn't result in glorious death, were brave. It worked. Eventually he received lands, recognition. But the question remains, did he have to justify himself because he really fled? Or did he have to justify himself because samurai culture was so obsessed with honorable death that simply surviving was suspicious, and Suenaga wasn't alone? Hundreds of samurais survived the invasions, fought, killed Mongols, and then when the kamikaze came and saved Japan, thousands of samurais waiting for rewards, lands, money, recognition. But the treasury was empty. 7 years building walls, mobilizing armies, and in the end, the decisive battle was fought by a storm. Hojo Tokimun tried to reward the warriors with honorary titles, ceremonial positions, promises of future favors. It wasn't enough. Many samurais felt they had risked their lives for nothing, that the shogunate used them and then discarded them. Tensions grew. Some clans began to question the shogunate's authority. If the gods saved Japan, why do we need the government? If the kamikaze is real, why do we pay taxes to maintain armies? Tokimun died young, he was 34. Some historians say it was from illness, others say it was from stress. He dedicated his entire life to preparing for an invasion that in the end was defeated by the weather. He died without knowing if he was a great leader or just a lucky man. The Mongol invasions changed Japan forever, but not in the way you'd expect. Japan entered the Sengoku period, the era of warring states. 200 years of constant conflict. It was the fault of the Mongol invasions. Not directly, but they planted the seeds. They showed that the shogunate wasn't invincible, that samurais could be defeated, that even the most powerful government depended on luck. And the kamikaze myth grew, became bigger with each generation. In the 14th century, it was a story of gods literally blowing wind against invaders. In the 19th century, it was proof that Japan was the chosen land. In the 20th century, it was justification for believing Japan couldn't lose a war. During World War II, Japanese pilots called themselves kamikaze, divine wind. They crashed into American ships believing that, like in 1281, the gods would protect Japan in the end. They didn't. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan surrendered unconditionally, and the kamikaze myth died in the atomic mushroom. It turned out the gods didn't protect Japan, that the 1281 storms were just that, storms. Meteorological coincidences. Luck. But for 650 years, millions of Japanese believed, and that belief shaped a nation, created an identity-shaped policies, wars, culture. And the Mongols, what happened to them after 2 catastrophic failures? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Kublai Khan continued ruling the largest empire in the world, conquered the rest of China, subdued Vietnam, expanded his territory as far as the eye could see. The defeat in Japan was a footnote, a minor failure in a reign of massive victories. But something changed in the Mongol psyche. For generations, they had been invincible on land. They crossed deserts, mountains, steppes, annihilated armies 10 times larger. But the sea defeated them twice. The ocean became their limit, their only impassable frontier. Modern historians ask uncomfortable questions. Were the storms really that devastating, or were the Mongols simply not good sailors? The ships were built hastily, many with green wood that hadn't dried properly. Chinese and Korean designs mixed without coordination. Some sources suggest the fleets were already half undone before the storms arrived. Maybe the kamikaze was just the final blow to an invasion that was already doomed. Maybe the Japanese won as much from the walls, the fierce resistance, and the disastrous Mongol logistics as from the weather. But that version doesn't inspire, doesn't create legends, doesn't sell the narrative of a divinely protected nation. Tsushima today is a quiet island. Tourists visit the beaches where 80 samurais died. There are monuments, commemorative plaques, museums showing replicas of Mongol armors and samurai katanas. The descendants of Sosuke Kuni still live there. They maintain the family temple, honor their ancestors who chose to die. But there's also a plaque for the Mongols, the Koreans, the Chinese, the 120,000 men who drowned at the bottom of the Sea of Japan. Soldiers who didn't choose this war, sailors forcibly recruited. Families who never knew what happened to their sons. Because here's the final truth. There were no good guys and bad guys in this story. There were expanding empires. There were warriors following orders. There were men dying for decisions others made. The 80 samurais of Tsushima were brave. They were also tools of a feudal system that valued death over life, heroes and victims simultaneously. The Mongols were brutal invaders. They were also professional soldiers doing their job in an era where conquest was standard policy. And the kamikaze was a miracle. Or it was luck, or it was poor Mongol planning, or it was all at once. History doesn't give clean answers, only events, facts, consequences. 80 samurais against 20,000 Mongols. A battle that lasted 3 hours, A war that lasted 7 years. A legend that lasted 700 years. The blood on Commodore Beach dried centuries ago. The bones are buried. The ships are at the bottom of the ocean, but the questions remain. When is it heroic to stay and die? When is it stupid? What is worth more, living with shame or dying with honor? Do the gods really intervene in human battles? Or do we just attribute divine meaning to random weather patterns? Japan chose to believe in the kamikaze. That belief made them feel invincible, made them feel special chosen. And that belief eventually led them to wars they couldn't win against enemies who wouldn't surrender to convenient storms. The Mongols chose to forget. Japan became those islands not worth conquering. A side note in the history of an empire that conquered everything else. And the 80 samurais of Tsushima chose to die. They didn't save Japan. They didn't defeat the Mongols. They only bought time, sent a message, and became symbols of something bigger than themselves. Maybe that's all. History remembers, not the facts, the symbols, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we value. 80 against 2,000. Impossible numbers, ridiculous odds. Predictable end. But they stayed anyway. And 600 years later, we still talk about them.